A.J. Brown has been talked about heavily as a trade candidate for many teams that need a new starting wide receiver, and it appears that there is significant momentum for him to land with the New England Patriots. Mike Sando of The Athletic reported that it is expected across the NFL that after in June, that he will be moved simply because of salary cap implications that make it more tenable for the Eagles to make that trade happen. He's got a huge contract, so it's all understandable. Brown is coming off of one of his worst seasons of his career. It was filled with a lot of strife and tension with his starting quarterback, his head coach, Nick Sirianni. It seems inevitable to this point. If he ends up with the New England Patriots, what does it do for the Patriots' odds to win the Super Bowl? That is my big question with this. They currently have the 12th best odds behind many surprising teams, including the likes of the Chargers, the Packers, the 49ers, the Lions, team that was just in the Super Bowl, 12th. How much higher would you gauge the Patriots' Super Bowl odds with the list that is written down in our document? Where would you place them if they landed A.J. Brown?
Oh, I'd put them right in that 10-1 mix. Bills, Ravens, Seahawks, 10-1. I'm not ballsy enough to put anybody ahead of the Rams right now. That team is on a rocket ship to the Super Bowl. But for the AFC, Patriots are immediate favorites over Buffalo, chokers. Immediate favorites over Ravens, rebuilding choke artists. And the Seahawks are going to have to figure that out on their own in the NFC. But for the AFC, the Patriots take a monster leap with A.J. Brown. He is the piece. He's the piece. He's a Vrabel guy. We knew about Vrabel. We knew Vrabel was going to the Patriots. We just knew because that's the coach. That's the landing spot for Mike Vrabel. A.J. Brown gets ditched by the Titans, and then they ditch Vrabel. Two guys put out by terrible ownership and decision-making by an awful front office and a team that's been the worst in the NFL for the last 2 years, reuniting on an upstart legacy franchise and in another start of another potential dynasty. Yeah. Final piece, man. Sometimes in sports, it just works out like that.
Yeah.
You draft a project QB that a bunch of dorks called a project QB who wasn't. Turns out he's a 6'5" athlete with a good arm that can make a lot of good throws when he's got time. And even when he's getting bared down on, he makes a lot of great throws. And then you give him a guy like A.J. Brown, someone that he could rely on. I'm not saying Drake Maye is going to go out in year 3 and crack it open and throw his receivers open all over the place like Brady did and just completely command the offense. But he has someone to lean on, someone that can go up and get a ball that maybe he left a couple inches high or toe tap on the sideline for a ball that should be non-catchable for any Jalen Polk or whoever they got else at the wide receiver room. But A.J. Brown makes that catch. I just think he fits the identity of this team, man. I think he's a spark plug for the Patriots as well, like gets them in a whole different attitude. Get me out of Philly with these losers and these cornballs. I want to go to the Patriots and win. That's what I get from A.J. Brown.
I'm on the same page with you here. I think that moving them up behind the Seahawks would be the easiest projection. I think that they absolutely would deserve to have better odds than the Chiefs and the Chargers. The line movement probably isn't going to work like this, but if we're just talking about where we would see where they would fit, I would slot them right behind the Seahawks, maybe ahead of the Seahawks, because of the fact that they would go from being this team that had a solid offseason, depending on what they do in the draft, to then being incredibly explosive on offense. A.J. Brown is that type of a piece that completely elevates you. And I don't think it's actually shocking, having removed Stephon Diggs from this roster in the offseason, for them to be all the way down at 12th. Like, that's not surprising to me, because if you look at this offense, it's got a lot of question marks, and the biggest question mark is who is the big number one go-to receiver? We talked about this. When you went and got Romeo Doubs, that was adding a receiver that was a really good number 2.
He's a B guy.
He's not the number one guy. You know what makes your receiver room unstoppable and one of the best in the NFL? When you've got Romeo Doubs being set up to eventually potentially become a 1,000-yard receiver because he's in a better offense that's less crowded, where he's going to get more opportunities to excel. He's a perfect Z. Is when he's got a dominant X receiver, contested catch demon that is going to come up with any ball that is thrown his way, and there's going to be so much attention to divert it to him. That is the path. And then the ancillary pieces of Kayshon Boutte being your next receiver in, probably like your 4th receiver, and then Kyle Williams likely being your slot. There's just so much diverse explosiveness. A.J. Brown is that type of a guy that he completely rounds out your team. I would also still consider spending a draft pick early on a receiver as well to just continuously round out this unit. But if they come away from this draft us feeling that they took the right steps and they went and got AJ Brown, not to mention the fact not having to spend, because if this happens in June, not having to spend one of their first round picks on trading for AJ Brown and being able to retain that, not one of, I mean, just their singular first round pick, not sending away that first round pick to go and get him. I think that makes this whole entire process of improving this offseason even better. So absolutely, they should move up into the top 4. That shouldn't be a ridiculous claim to make, because I see significantly more flaws with the Chiefs. I see significantly more flaws with the Chargers team that has a new defensive coordinator stepping in, and also a bunch of
the OC steps in,
and also new offensive coordinator. I completely forgot about that. And on top of this, with some of the other teams that are ahead of them, Packers have inconsistency all the time.
B-plus team
banged up coming into the season. We don't know how quickly Micah's going to be ready to go. And I feel like the 49ers are always an inconsistent team to buy into. So I'm bought in, man. I think that this is the type of move that accelerates you.
This is something that the Rams wouldn't hesitate to do. Like when they decided to legitimize themselves, and I know everyone makes the Les Snead F them picks, F them kids jokes, but I am all in on the Patriots taking a swing. Like when else are you going to take the swing? When else? Like we're sitting here like Jettas is going to get locked up. They had Jamar, he's under contract. Like all the ones are being kept by their teams. And Philly has an issue with their one because of, I would just say, differences in attitude and personality with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. And I know you saw that Super Bowl clip after they won their first one where Jalen Hurts was like getting preachy with A.J. Brown on the sideline. A.J. Brown was just trying to be like hype, like, hey, we did it, man. And Jalen Hurts is like, good things come to the guys that work like us. And I'm like, you're like, you're winning the Super Bowl. You're trying to mog on your teammate that got you here, and you're dropping hardo Instagram quotes. What are you doing, Jalen Hurts? I'm like, of course he doesn't like the guy. He's not a real guy, and he's a quarterback, and he's got a quarterback like mentality disease thing where these guys are weirdos. They're like pitchers. AJ Brown's a real guy. I think Drake Maye is a real guy who plays quarterback. There's a difference there. There's no Russell Wilson weirdness that I think Jalen Hurts has some of. Make the pairing. God, it just seems so clear and obvious to us, and we're two dumbos. But shouldn't it be obvious and clear to every other person how good of a move this would be? And I don't think we're even reaching.
No, I really don't. I think that naturally that once this move happens, that there has to be a market reaction to a trade like that. Again, I don't think it's shocking that at the current moment that they're low. Them being at 12th after being in the Super Bowl is very low, especially considering the teams ahead of them didn't exactly do anything that was overtly exciting this offseason. I will say I do think that the Texans should be higher. We'll have a separate discussion after the draft on whose odds that we're buying into, and we'll also do win totals and all those things for every single team. So that's something to look forward to. But yeah, I think that the market is going to reflect the impact that this has. Now, the second question with this, before we move on to some of our picks, how does this affect the Eagles, who sit at 9th? They have the 9th best odds at 16-1. How does this affect them? I do wonder, is there a player that's a part of this? Is there theoretically, I know I just talked about keeping that first round pick. Is there a, hey, you need to pick this player for us type of a deal? They want him to take a receiver and then it's a swap. I mean, that
you got to worry about Howie, man. You know Howie's plotting.
Well, seriously. I mean, that shit happens all the time in just sports in general. So it's theoretically possible that we could have that be a part of the contingency of the trade. And I would imagine they would be motivated to try and make that happen so that they're not just getting future draft capital out of it. But where would you move the Eagles if they lost AJ Brown?
Oh, I'd move them down. I'd move them down big time, because what's the offense look like? Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, a draft pick, and Saquon, and Jalen Hurts, who's inconsistent. You get Lane Johnson back. Maybe you have a healthier offensive line. I'm not going to discount them possibly being dominant in the run game. That's there. But for a team that is projected right now, current roster is the clear favorite in the NFC East, do I put them as a clear favorite anymore? No, it's tighter. It's tight. Their odds are just above Dallas's odds, in my opinion. Their odds are just above Washington's.
I think that's a little bit of an extreme swing. To me, I would probably drop them 2 spots behind the Texans, because I think, to your point, who is that go-to big playmaker that they can rely on now that they don't have AJ Brown? And let's cut through it. Jalen Hurts is not a good quarterback. I mean, how many times I was like putting on radio, by the way, and I was getting into it with I forget who the host was that I was on with, but like he presented this hypothetical of what would be I forget what the hypothetical was. It was something along the lines of like, what would you trade for Jalen Hurts, or like, would you rather keep the 6th overall pick or use it to go and get Jalen Hurts? And I said, no, I don't want Jalen Hurts. Why would I want? He's the guy who's relying on having a perfect situation, and now his perfect situation gets worse. And we saw this past year when the perfect situation wasn't working so great because AJ Brown was sick of his shit that it completely changed the whole situation. So I don't know, dude. I think that this would probably dip a little bit. No, they would have to get a baller. They would have to get somebody in this deal.
If there's no AJ Brown, do they have a better shot at winning the Super Bowl than the Bears?
No.
But the Bears are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams below the Eagles right now.
You know what not enough people talk about, by the way? Kellen Moore was so important for their Super Bowl run. Same thing with Shane Steichen. Like, they had 2 brilliant offensive coaches. If you don't have the right intelligent offensive coach, Jalen Hurts is the most useless quarterback in the NFL. I don't care. I don't care what anyone says to me.
They don't like it when you say anything bad about Jalen Hurts, man. People
don't like that. But the problem is when we talk about Jalen Hurts is that a lot of his accomplishments are team accomplishments. Even when he went, and there are a lot of these things that look really good on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Super Bowl MVP.
Sure.
Whoa, that's great.
Come on. He won it. Come on.
The defensive line for the Eagles should have won it that year. Patrick Mahomes was in hell. If Patrick Mahomes had a little bit more time and it becomes a duel, you know what happens to Jalen Hurts? He ain't winning the damn game.
He had his best game like ever in this Super Bowl, man. He had like 4 touchdowns.
That was his best game ever.
It was his best game ever. I'm not going to knock him in that Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's awfully easy to have all that cushion. God, that would be so easy to be nice and confident by the fact that you're not pressed because you're not. There's no stress. Do you understand the stress of going toe-to-toe with, oh, great, Patrick just scored. Now we got to match it? No, you're standing there and you're going, oh, the defensive line got to him again. Jalen Carter punched him in the head. Oh, okay, well, we're good.
We also have an unstoppable play from 2 yards and in on every single drive, or every single possession.
And not to mention the fact that that game in particular, damn it, you pissed me off.
This is Jalen Hurts slander in April.
Slander is factual.